Well, we are very pleased and delighted to have Stephanie Nuria Sabato back with us again, and certainly enjoy looking at the new do. And she even gave us a new picture to put in our newsletter, which was actually I like the larger picture because has you sitting in front of the flowers. That was very nice as well. But Stephanie's here today to share with us her thoughts in pursuit of one's ideal, and that has to do with self-realization. I'm looking forward to that, Stephanie. Stephanie is an educator, designer, world traveler, seeker, and servant of God. She's received initiations and trainings from several Sufi schools, including the two on your screen I'm not going to try to pronounce. She has also been initiated by the Dalai Lama, Saint Mother Teresa, Sikh Nazim Haqqani. I'm not very good with those names. We're just going to move on. You are on, Stephanie, and welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's get me here where I want to be. Let's see. I'm trying to look. Are you there, Kyle? Maybe you can help me. I don't see maybe it's down here again under a different. I'm trying to get my screen so that it's just, at least for me, it's just me. I get too distracted if I see.
Are you trying to change to gallery view?
I'm trying to change away from gallery view. I just want it to be my view. So it should be the speaker view. And I don't see that anymore, do you? Here I do. I got it. Got it. Okay. Let me get comfortable. All right, everyone, you ready? Do you like the new do? Okay, we always begin with a Sufi invocation. So it's towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the spirit of guidance. All right, so the day, as our friend Doug said, this is about the pursuit of one's ideal. And this is really kind of a continuum of some classes that we've been doing as a group, but it works. It works really well here. So those names that Doug couldn't pronounce, those two people are the son of the person that brought these teachings from India in 1910. And he traveled throughout the United States first and then throughout Europe before returning to India. And his name, there's an honorific term we give to a teacher that's deceased, and that's Hazrat. It's spelled Hazrat. I'm saying this so when I say this name, you'll be able to understand what I'm saying. His first name was Inayat, and it's Inayat. Inayat, and then Khan is the last name, Khan. His sons were named after him. So one was Hidayat. They hyphenated his first and last name, Inayat Khan, and Pir Vilayat Inayat Khan. So those are words that I want you to understand when I say them, because it might just sound like gibberish. So what I'm going to share are some thoughts intermingled with my own thoughts about this ideal. And, spoiler alert, what we're talking about is the God ideal. And Inayat Khan says it like this: the perfect life is in pursuing one's ideal. This is not referring to an ideal in the material sense, but in the spiritual sense. Our spiritual ideal, and that is different for each one of us. It may be based on a religion. It may be based on, your root religion, we could say. And it could be based on anything. It could be nature. It could be, spiritual ideals, I think, come through everything. But, it's up to us to discover that. So Hazrat Inayat Khan says, and this is a term he gave it, the God ideal. He calls it that. So let's ask ourselves here. And I ask myself this. I think frequently, because I think it's good to ask, what is my God ideal? And again, it doesn't have to be anything from anyone else. This is within us. What is our God ideal? And as we reflect upon our own spiritual growth, and I'm sure you all do that from time to time, you start to realize you have these awarenesses and you're not even maybe even sure where they've come from, but you realize that there's some new meaning or new understanding in one's life. These evolve through our lives. You know, it's like reading a poem when we're much younger and then we come back to it and it's like, oh, a whole other layer of meaning comes revealed to us, right? So that's the same with the God ideal. And I think it's a good thing to ask ourselves, is the God ideal revelatory? Is it revealing itself to us through life? Are we having these aha moments? Or we could ask ourselves, what has been revealed? How do we see our growth in that way? But it's also important to think of it as evolutionary, that it is evolving as well. So revelatory versus, evolutionary. I think we have to think about those two terms. And maybe you haven't really thought about it in that way before, but maybe after this session together, you start to think about this. Is God revealing him, herself? And how is that evolving through me? Those are good questions. Now, I love this quote, God is great. And as I concentrate on these classes and prepare them, these little things come. They're like little missiles of messages to share with you. So St. Augustine taught this, and listen to the beauty of these words. To fall in love with God is the greatest romance. To seek God is the greatest adventure. To find God is the greatest human achievement. Would you like for me to read that again? Yeah. To fall in love with God is the greatest romance. To seek God is the greatest adventure. To find God is the greatest human achievement. Well, this is so, for me, it was beautifully articulated of a spiritual quest towards God. And St. Augustine further teaches this. In order to discover the character of people, we only have to observe what it is that they love. So it tells us a lot, what are their goals? What are their intentions? What are they focused on? So here we can pause and ask ourselves, what do I love? Maybe we can also even ask, how do I love? And so this is a profound and deep question, I think, to ask ourselves again and again, sort of looking at these different facets of our attention, our awareness, our love. Pay attention. So, for example, do we just love food? Well, that can be a wonderful thing. That's a great gift from God. Do we love travel, to go and meet other people, other cultures, experience those things, parts of nature? And also, nature itself is a great revealer. Inayat Khan always said that it's the Holy Manuscript of Nature is one of the best sacred manuscripts there are. What do animals teach us? They have so much to share with us and so forth. And what do these reveal of the God ideal forming my character is a good question. So a lot of questions that I'm creating here, but you can always come back and read these notes on our website. So consider this evolving my character towards God. What is evolving my character towards God? And what is God revealing to me through what I love? What a great question. It's pretty, it's almost like an instant biofeedback, Notice where your attention is. How's God revealing him, herself? And how is it evolving me? So I wanted to work with, we've never done this before, but I thought I'd give it a try. How about if we work with some Sufi practices? Now, maybe other people that have visited with you have offered a prayer or a mantra. In the Sufi tradition, we call mantra or sacred sound wazifa, W-A-Z-I-F-A-H, wazifa. And these names are drawn from the Holy Quran. And in the Holy Quran, it is said that there are 100 names. 90 of them are revealed to us. They're spoken in the Quran. And there's one that's hidden and a secret that, as one studies, becomes revelatory. Well, this is also true, for example, in the Holy Bible. There are 100 names or qualities that describe Jesus. So we find this in other traditions. Even in Buddhism, we have a pantheon of deities that reveals something of Buddha nature to us. So this is a common theme that we can see in all religions. And the practice, we use these foreign words because there's a power to them, in the sense that if we tune to that vibration that has been spoken on thousands and millions of tongues throughout centuries, there's something of that vibration that can begin to resonate in us. This is very profound to consider this and to do these practices. Now, to these words, there's a sound code, and I'm going to emphasize that and give you a meaning of these words. There's two practices or wazifa that we're going to do next to each other, and I like it because in the Quran, they appear next to each other, so I consider them like family. So the first one is fatah, and fatah is a very special quality. Just listen to it. It's spelled Fattah. So in some languages, this is true in Chinese and Arabic and Persian, there's an aspiration at the end of the word. And it is, when I lived in the Middle East, in Western cultures, we have this sense of personal space. But Hawaiians do this too. They share the breath. And so when I was living in the Middle East, people get very close to you. They consider it rude if you step away, but they consider it that sharing the breath. So the language does that too. So these double T's are like, listen to it, ya, fatah. And then it's a at the end, ya, fatah. Now you can think of this. You know what happens when you open a carbonated can? It's like, pop, right? Or a jar, pop. You hear that. This sound is like that. So think of that being created in yourself. I'll explain the meaning of fatah in a moment. There's the second word, is like the sister or the brother, is alim. And this one has a double E sound and an emphasis on the Okay, and so it sounds like alim. Something happens when you do that with your mouth. Do it with me. Just do that. Do you feel the vibration? Right? It opens something up. And the fatah does too. It's almost like, I describe it as like popping the lid off the heart and opening it up. Okay? So what's the meaning of these two words? Fatah is literally, it means, there's vast meanings, but the short is like, it's the opener or the revealer. Fatah is that. And it means to begin and to open continuously. So this practice is like opening us up, and God willing will keep us open. It'll keep churning. And then it also means that we open our heart to the infinite aspects of the divine presence. And it's an enlightenment that keeps happening. It just keeps happening. It keeps churning. And it brings power to clear away obstacles on the path. And it opens the heart to love and ecstasy. Okay, so that's fatah. We're going to do them together, and I'll demonstrate. We're going to just do them a few times. And then alim is the all-knowing or the omnipresent. And it's the revelation of God consciousness, and it's the ultimate secret of the heart. So we're opening with fatah, and we're looking into the heart to experience this revelation of God consciousness. And alim also means that it's the true knowledge that leads to a continuing relationship with wisdom that heals us and discerns. So it creates a wisdom mind from it. So let's do this. When we do the practices, the wazifa, we use the prefix ya. Ya is like, oh, precious divine one. So it would be like, oh, precious divine opener of the way, opener of my heart, or divine, precious, the one that is all-knowing and omniscient, that resides in my heart and leads to great wisdom. So this is how we're going to say them. And because of our time, I'm just going to do them 5 times. We, as students of Sufism, do them 101 times. in a session, or people, if they can't, they can break it up into other, 33, 33, 34, 35. So but we're going to do it now. So listen to it a couple times, then we'll do it together. Ya Vata, Ya Alim, Ya Vata, Ya Alim, Ya Vata, Ya Alim. Do it with me. Let's do it 5 times. Just see what happens. You ready? Ya Vata, Ya Alim, Ya Vata, Ya Alim. Put your lips together. Make sure you hum. Ya Vata, Ya Alim, Ya Vata, Ya Alim, Ya Vata, Ya Alim. So we'll come back to these words. I'll weave them back in for you to emphasize their meaning. So one of my very precious Sufi teachers, really kind of the last one who passed away some years ago now, he was the son of Hazrat Inayat Khan, and his name was Hidayat Inayat Khan. He was the youngest son. He himself lived to be 99 years old. Next class, I think, or in September or August, no, next one, we'll be remembering him. And I'll share some of his teachings, not with you all, but with our group. That's what I mean by next class. Anyway, he was quite profound and had great sense of humor. And he said it this way. He said this idea of the spiritual ideal, our God ideal, he said, when we seek after an object, we draw that object closer to us. And he said, instead of chasing it, we use our concentration upon the object, and that draws the object nearer to us. It's a very different way of thinking. It's almost like not doing, but this concentration allows, they always say, be careful what you think or what you ask for, you may get it, right? I mean, it's that kind of thing. It's like, but if we're thinking about a certain ideal, and I do believe that every ideal leads us to that ultimate goal, whether it's through education, vocation, friendships, it's all leading to that goal. And if we're developing and seeking our God ideal, just kind of reminding ourselves of that on a daily basis, then God comes closer to us. And there's this saying, I did write it down. There's this saying, it's attributed to Sai Baba, who's a great saint of India. Shriti Sai Baba, there's another Sai Baba now incarnate, but he used to say, but I think it's been in several sacred scripts from several prophetic teachers, he would say, if you take 1 step towards God, God will take 10 steps towards you. And I read also that it says, God takes 1,000 steps towards you and then pauses. But we have to take the last step towards God. It's like we have that free will. We also have that ego that we have to wrestle with, and that's part of the path as well. And I like to think of it because, still sometimes when you're traveling, we have to tune radio stations in, right? That's an old-fashioned way of thinking about it, but, we still have to kind of tune it in and fine-tune it. And I think of that as like there's this eternal bandwidth in the universe, and we just need to tune into it. And we could call that, oh, God. Those are the call letters. Oh, God. Okay, so think of that. Oh, God, So Inayat Khan says, and he poses this question, is it power which is the object of the spiritual person, or is it inspiration after which one seeks? And he answers, it is in fact neither of these, Yet through the object of pursuit, all these things, such as power and inspiration, follow us as we proceed on our path. That's a very interesting thing to say. It's neither of these things, but as we concentrate on these things, this power and inspiration begin to follow us, and I think they become us. I feel that very deeply in my own life. I couldn't be where I am. I couldn't be who I am if that was not true. I was blessed with that connection from a very young age, and it might have even been a survival mechanism for me. More about that later. So the goal of the spiritual person is self-realization, and the journey towards the depth of our being is our God realization. And God realization, I think, is the first step. We were talking about that before we began the session. And God realization is the next. Okay, so there's a question that we ask. Do we sacrifice all of our interests in life or consider different objects that people have in their lives as something leading us astray? And the answer is no, not at all. No doubt, God's realization is the highest object that one soul can have. But all the other objects which we see in life do not necessarily hinder us on the path. In fact, they can become the staircase on our way. Therefore, it's important to consider different objects. And we could say our different goals in life as a step upwards, but also a step downwards on the staircase, leading to our God ideal. Both are of value because they have the ability to see and understand. And that's Yavatah, Ya'alim. We open up and then we see and understand differently. Okay. I have no idea how much time I've used up, and I might need someone to hook me and let me know if I need to make this shorter. I hope not. I might have to come back to it because it's all very important, I think, and it all relates. So accordingly, we place before ourselves at different times different objects, so riches and pleasures and material gains. The spiritual person starts the journey from that point, and we learn things, but that's not the end. The process of evolution is not a straight line. It's like a wheel that is ever turning. So this experience of a person who treads the spiritual path begins to show a downward tendency, and from that moves upward again. Now, if you give me a moment, I want to describe this as a metaphor. So think of the process of a water wheel moving. We know that that wheel generates energy, right? And it's in a kind of perpetual motion unless you turn that engine off. We hope we don't that. But then something else happens after that. What happens is the paddles dip low as if bowing, and they rise up again, filled. But then what happens when they reach the top? They have to turn their little paddles or heads down again, bow low, and come up again. And so that's why we take step upwards, but step down, and steps backwards, higher, lower. But in doing that, it's a filling and an emptying process. And I believe that is evolutionary. So think of it in that way, that when we empty ourselves, we can fill up again and feel renewed with understanding and a view. And this is the essence of al-fatah, ya-fatah. It's this continuous motion, continuous motion. And what's more, good news is once you do those practices, they're kind of in you. They keep churning in you. You don't need to, we do them 101 times, but you might see that you notice things differently over the next week or so. So again, fatah, that continuous rising up and then emptying, bowing low. We know in many traditions, this act of bowing, of humbling oneself, of putting the head below the heart is important. So the water wheel within us generates an inner power, and it can clear away the obstacles and open our lives to success. The success of both God realization and God revelation. So another thing, and this is important, and I want to get this out too before we end. The spiritual person may seem to be going backwards, Well, that sounds really odd, doesn't it? Why, no, not me, I'm not going backwards. But what does that really mean? What does it mean to go backwards? We find that that in spirituality we get health to the mind and the body. We may experience more vigor, more strength, more inspiration, more aspiration, more enthusiasm, more energy, and a living spirit that makes us feel youthful. I don't know about you. I certainly do feel that. I know Gemma and I, we talk at least once a week, and I reaffirm that. I said, I think I feel better now. I'm 71, I'll be 72, than I did in my 30s, honest to goodness. I can sustain my energy. I have a more clarity of thought. I have more, I don't know, maybe that's called retirement, but that's also part of it. Stepping back away from life, so we have the time to do that. So it creates all of these things and this living spirit that makes us feel youthful. And whatever is our age, we can do this, just like the water wheel, generating power. We see that bending low in humility lifts us up and renews us. So I'm just going to pause. If you check my Facebook page, some of you have, you see that in Father's Day, I sort of honored my own father, who was outside of the family a good part of our life, but also my spiritual fathers. And you'll see there that there's a picture of me with the Dalai Lama, a picture there with Hazrat Inayat Khan, a picture there with who else? There were Murshida Stephanie. He was a mentor too. He was the former minister of finance in the Netherlands and also one of the founding members of the International Monetary Fund, a great economist. Who else? Oh, and my teacher, his eminence, Khamtrul Rinpoche. Well, someone asked me, how is it possible that you met all these people? And the answer is, I served every one of them. I always asked what it was I could do for them. And people often have asked, how do you get close to these spiritual beings? Because there have been female ones as well. And I said, I have never expected someone to just give me time and pay attention to me. But I have offered to clean their homes, cook their food, host them, and so on and so forth. And this allows me to be close just to observe them. And observing them teaches me so much about who they are, how they live their lives, what they find is important. And that's a spiritual teaching in and of itself. So that's how, by serving people. Okay. So again, Joe was mentioning, one of the teacher Hidayat Inayat Khan, he and his wife came to visit, and that's a longer story, but he said, you had your apron on and you were cooking and you were cleaning, and their children were like in their 70s, 60s and 70s and came, and I tried very much, because I thought that's the greatest thing I can do is give these people time together, because they lived in different parts of the world, and I just stayed quiet in a way but tried to be attentive to what they needed. And he said that made such a difference. It was like that kind of made this deep relationship that continued for a decade or 2 decades even. So I'm seeing somebody liking my post anyway. All right. So think about that. How do I get close to someone? Ask how you can help them. That's a great way to start. So Ram Dass says, by becoming nothing, we become everything. That is such a great line. And you've probably read it in his books, but he did come to Kansas City a couple times, and that was one of his sayings. When you become nothing, you become everything. So by removing these shackles of our limited identity, meaning ego, we can become fresh and new and spacious. The Buddha calls it, you've heard this, clear mind, don't know. Clear mind, don't know. Become nothing. But then by that, everything is a possibility, a potential in us. So as we show in our personality childlike traits where there's no worry, no anxiety or no bitterness against anyone, because everyone's a teacher to us, good or bad, where there's a desire to be friendly with everyone, to not have pride or conceit, but to readily associate with anyone. So a spiritual person becomes like a child. It's not it's not simplistic, but it's simple. They don't become simplistic, but they have a kind of beautiful, they don't become simple, I guess is what I'm trying to say, but they have a simplicity to them, which is a kind of purity. And of course, we know those words in the Bible, right? Jesus spoke them, become ye as little children. And these few words, Jesus is trying to convey something very deep to us, and that is to find within ourselves that simplicity, that humility, that innocence of a child. And this helps us to overcome and rise above and shed our complex adult reasoning, which often gets in the way of our spirituality and our prideful nature. I mean, who are we? Who are we? We're a child of God. So this guides us to have this reliance on something greater than oneself, and opens us up to this discovery of our God ideal, and it can be revealed in the heart, and it can light us up with wisdom and purity and innocence. Innocence, what a nice thing to think about. So this is the prescription for overcoming the small self and overcoming this self. And this self is the basis of every religion, just to try to find, doesn't mean you're not flashy and a girly girl like I am. I'm that. That's who I am. Doesn't mean someone else I was at a Sufi camp, and a woman who's very natural, and almost impish and boy-like, really sweet, came up and said, she'd always come to my classes, but she said, do I have to start wearing big earrings and bangles to be a spiritual teacher? No, that's just my, Italian nature. You don't have to be that. Do you? You know what I mean? Do you? Okay. Ram Dass also says, I'm getting close. I love Scott's little laughing with tears. Can you all see those little emojis that float up? Okay. So Ram Dass also said, I copied this down. I don't know where I picked it up, but it was a nice quote. I know where I picked it up. If you subscribe to Substack, there's a whole thing, just you get a daily teaching on Ram Dass or any other teacher. So that's pretty great. And they're free. I mean, you can get a paid version, but they're free. So this quote comes from there. I love it. I would like my life to be a statement of love and compassion. And where it isn't, that's where my work lies. So in other words, let's forget ourselves, and by doing that, we become more loving and more compassionate, more open. And that's an important thing. So I'm almost to the end. Thank you for your patience, and I hope you like this. Little story. There was a beautiful song from a play that ran off Broadway in 1971. I'm going to give you a lot of clues living up to it. This play began as a project by the drama students at Carnegie Mellon University. And in 1973, the play was fashioned into a movie. And there's a well-known song, and that well-known song was inspired by two things. The first one was the Gospel of Matthew, and I'm going to share these passages with you. These are your clues. Blessed are the pure in heart, they will see God. And that's Matthew 5:8. Second, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Also from Matthew 22:37. And Matthew 4:19 says, Jesus said to the apostles, come, follow me, and I will send you out as fisher of people or of men. It might also surprise you that not often is it that a 13th century medieval Catholic bishop in England would aspire the song popularized in the play and the movie in the 70s. This person is called Saint Richard of Chichester, and he wrote this, and he said these words on his deathbed. This is your biggest clue, the end of it. Thanks be to thee, my Lord Jesus Christ, for all the benefits thou hast given me. You can think of this as your meditation. For all the pains and insults thou hast borne for me. O most merciful Redeemer, friend, and brother, Two of the names of Jesus, friend and brother. May I know thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, and follow thee more clearly. Recognize it? I think we're ready for you to hit it, Kyle. And I'm going to turn my sound down, and let's sing as loud as we can because it's fabulous. Well, I want to thank you for being here and allowing me to share with all of you. I always enjoy it so much being with you.
And we enjoy having you, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being with us. You know, your talk reminds me of how important it is to look at the little things like ritual in our lives or even the sounds of the words we speak as leading to the divine ideal. And it's a process of remembrance, keeping your mind focused on the divinity in your life that you're applying to, that allows us to continue to move forward. And so thank you so much for those wonderful words of inspiration.